In the long, glittering history of cinema, few figures glow with the quiet radiance and unshakable dignity of Olivia de Havilland. Her name evokes a vanished world, an era when Hollywood was an empire of dazzling spotlights and unforgiving shadows, a place where stars were shaped, controlled, and, at times, consumed. Yet among them stood Olivia, a woman who refused to break, refused to bend, and whose gentleness concealed a strength capable of altering the very structure of the industry that tried to contain her. Her rise was not an accident of beauty or luck. Behind her serene expression lived a disciplined mind, a carefully sharpened artistic instinct, and a fierce commitment to truth in performance. She became forever immortalized as Melanie Hamilton in Gone with the Wind, a role that demanded a subtler kind of courage, one rooted in emotional intelligence, empathy, and quiet resilience. But behind Melanie's tenderness was a woman who would go on to defy an entire studio system, challenge the rules binding actors to oppressive contracts, and win a legal battle that rewrote Hollywood history. Olivia's life was shaped not only by triumphs on screen, but also by personal battles fought in silence, the lifelong rivalry with her sister, Joan Fontaine, the unspoken, bittersweet affection she shared with Errol Flynn, the taxing emotional roles that pushed her to the edge, and the transformative decades she later spent in Paris, far from the noise of Hollywood. She lived more than a century, long enough to witness the golden age of cinema rise, glitter, fracture, and fade. And through all that time, she remained unmistakably herself, elegant, disciplined, and quietly revolutionary. This is the story of the last great lady of Hollywood's golden age, of the strength she carried, the battles she chose, and the legacy she left behind. The story of Olivia de Havilland begins far from Hollywood, in the city of Tokyo, where she was born into a family shaped by contrasts and quiet emotional distance. Her mother, a strong-willed British actress, dreamed of raising artists. Her father, a reserved lawyer, drifted further and further away from the household. When Olivia was still a child, the family moved to California in search of stability, unaware that this change of country would also mark the beginning of a destiny forever tied to cinema. In that new home, Joan Fontaine grew beside her like a bright, competitive presence. Their mother compared gestures, grades, and achievements, unintentionally feeding a silent rivalry between the two sisters. Olivia, the more introspective one, found refuge in books, school plays, and the careful observation of everything around her. She was fascinated by the way people would say one thing with their words and another entirely with their eyes, and she began to sense that within those contradictions there was a truth she might one day carry on to a stage. Her natural calm and clear diction drew the attention of teachers and neighbors. It wasn't long before she began appearing in more serious school productions, where she showed a maturity rare for her age. During one of those performances, a local theater director noticed her presence and invited her to join a professional production. For Olivia, it was a tremendous leap forward, from small school halls to a real stage, facing an audience that didn't know her and expectations that were far higher. She discovered that once the lights rose, fear disappeared, replaced by an odd but powerful sense of freedom. It didn't take long before a talent scout from Warner Bros. Attended one of her performances and was captivated by the combination of delicacy and firmness that the young actress radiated. The studio signed her immediately, convinced they could turn her into a star. On set, she met Errol Flynn, with whom she would form one of the most memorable screen pairings in adventure cinema. Together, they starred in stories filled with swords, ships, and distant kingdoms, and audiences embraced them as symbols of romance and fantasy. On screen, their chemistry was undeniable. Off-screen, they shared confidences and a quiet closeness that fueled rumors of an affection that was never openly spoken. As her name began to circulate, Olivia also started to see clearly the limitations of the system that had elevated her. Warner Bros. Repeatedly cast her as sweet, proper, perfect young women, while she longed for characters with nuance, women capable of showing both fragility and strength. When she heard her name mentioned for the role of Blanche in A Streetcar Named Desire, she felt a door finally opening toward the kind of challenge she craved. But the hope didn't last. The studio shut down the possibility before it could move forward, reminding her that her career was bound by contracts she did not control. Instead of resigning herself, Olivia began to examine those contracts with the same focus she used when studying a script. She read clauses, asked questions, demanded dates and conditions to be clarified. She realized that behind the glamour of premieres and posters, there was a structure designed to keep actors obedient and grateful. That awareness didn't explode all at once, but it planted a seed. The young actress the public saw as gentle and compliant was learning to recognize the real weight of her name and of her work. And very soon, that calm exterior would transform into a decision that would shake all of Hollywood without return. When Olivia de Havilland first received the script for Gone with the Wind, she had no idea that the story would change not only her life, but the emotional memory of millions of viewers around the world. She wasn't invited to audition for the lead role, nor was she among the top candidates for Scarlett O'Hara. Yet Olivia felt an almost spiritual pull toward Melanie Hamilton. While countless actresses longed to embody Scarlett's fiery resilience, Olivia was captivated by Melanie's quiet strength, inner grace, and steadfast loyalty. To her, portraying such a woman was not an act of fragility, but a different and equally formidable expression of courage. The role, however, was not easy to obtain. Olivia was under contract with Warner Bros., a studio notorious for fiercely protecting its interests and rarely lending its actors to rival productions. But Olivia refused to surrender. She went directly to Jack Warner himself and, with calm determination, explained why the role mattered deeply to her artistic growth. Warner immediately rejected the request. Olivia, undeterred, turned to his wife, someone with whom she shared a warm rapport. After a private conversation, Mrs. Warner persuaded her husband to grant Olivia the screen test. That quiet, almost clandestine gesture opened the door to a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Filming became a trial by fire. Melanie required delicacy, emotional precision, and a profound understanding of silence. While Vivien Leigh commanded the screen with volcanic intensity, Olivia brought steadiness, tenderness, and a noble subtlety that only an actor who truly understood her character could deliver. George Cukor, the original director, listened closely when Olivia suggested exploring certain nuances of Melanie. An extraordinary exchange in a Hollywood where young actresses were expected to follow orders, not offer insights. Cukor recognized the intelligence behind her instincts and encouraged her to deepen the role. When the film premiered in 1939, the world was dazzled. The production was monumental, but it was the beating heart of Melanie Hamilton that countless viewers carried with them. Olivia earned her first Academy Award nomination and a newfound reputation. She was no longer merely Errol Flynn's on-screen partner, but an actress capable of anchoring a character with powerful inner truth. Yet success carried an unexpected cost. Hollywood's obsession with labels quickly turned into a gilded prison. Studios decided that Olivia was perfect for sweet, gentle, proper roles and began locking her into that mold. What looked like praise was, in reality, a cage. Beautiful, admired, but still a cage. Olivia watched as the studio assigned her nearly identical characters: obedient young women, self-sacrificing wives, virtuous fiancés. Every contract approval, every casting decision felt like another reminder that her talent was being siphoned into a narrow archetype. For an artist who had already shown depth and emotional complexity in Gone with the Wind, this typecasting was a punishment disguised as opportunity. Still, Olivia maintained outward grace. She smiled for the cameras, answered the press with courtesy, and thanked the studio for every project. But inside, something was shifting. The woman who had portrayed Melanie with layered emotional truth was beginning to question how much longer she could allow others to define her destiny. She wasn't seeking conflict. She was seeking creative freedom. And with every shallow role placed in her hands, her suspicion grew. The system was not designed to help her evolve, but to keep her predictable, controllable, and eternally sweet. Then came To Each His Own, an unexpected project that allowed her to show a darker, richer register and gave her the first Oscar of her career in 1946. Though the film was a triumph, it revealed a painful contradiction. Olivia could reach greatness, but only in the rare moments when she slipped past the studio's iron control. That contradiction would become the fuel for the next chapter of her life, one that would shake Hollywood to its core. Olivia de Havilland's true transformation did not happen in front of a camera, nor on a red carpet, nor even on an Oscar night. It happened in silence, inside smoke-filled offices, between endless stacks of contracts and decisions made by others. It was there, in the rigid heart of the studio system, that Olivia realized her career and her life were trapped inside a mechanism that allowed no space to grow, question, or choose. And it was there that the most elegant and decisive rebellion of Hollywood's golden age was born. After To Each His Own earned her first Oscar in 1946, Olivia believed she would finally have access to richer, more complex characters. But Warner Bros. Had a different script in mind. The studio continued offering her identical roles: submissive young women, flawless figures, tender characters without depth or contradiction. Olivia slowly understood that even though she had earned critical acclaim, she was still being treated as a replaceable gear in a system that saw her not as an artist, but as property. The pressure increased when Warner began punishing her attempts to choose better. Every time Olivia rejected a role she considered shallow or repetitive, the studio retaliated with so-called disciplinary suspensions. According to Warner Brothers, these suspensions paused her contract. For them, the suspended time did not count as time worked. For Olivia, it was a blatant abuse, a tactic intended to stretch her contract indefinitely. What should have been 7 years could easily turn into 10, 12, or more. One day, exhausted by what she viewed as an intolerable injustice, Olivia asked to review her contracts carefully. She sat down with a lawyer, examined dates, clauses, and internal memos, and there she discovered something crucial. California law stated that a personal services contract could not last more than 7 actual years, regardless of suspensions or interruptions. Warner Bros. Had been using a practice that, in Olivia's view, directly violated the law. After reflecting in silence, with the same self-control that defined many of her performances, she made a decision that few actresses of her era would have dared to consider. She would sue one of the most powerful studios in the world. When the news leaked, all of Hollywood held its breath. Suing Warner Bros. Was not merely a legal challenge, it was almost a professional suicide mission for a young actress. The studio could destroy her reputation, cut her off from future roles, close every door in her path. Many fellow actors supported her privately, but were terrified to do so publicly. Anyone who stood beside Olivia risked retaliation. During the legal proceedings, Olivia faced overwhelming pressure, malicious rumors, and a studio-driven media machine eager to paint her as ungrateful. But she remained steady. Instead of raising her voice or seeking scandal, she presented herself in court with calm clarity. She explained how suspensions were used as weapons of control, how her contract had been manipulated, and how the entire system was designed to bind actors in place and prevent them from choosing their own artistic direction. The verdict arrived in 1944, and it changed Hollywood forever. The court ruled in Olivia's favor, declaring that a personal services contract could not be extended beyond 7 calendar years. The decision became known as the de Havilland Law, a landmark precedent that transformed labor rights across the film industry. For the first time, the studios were forced to recognize that actors were human beings, not corporate assets. But victory came with a cost. For a time, Olivia became a persona non grata among conservative studios, and some producers attempted to isolate her. Yet history proved her right. Actors like Kirk Douglas, Rita Hayworth, and countless others eventually benefited from the legal foundation she had laid. And almost in silence, Olivia became a symbol, the woman who challenged a giant and won. Olivia de Havilland's legal victory did more than change Hollywood's rules. It opened an entirely new chapter in her artistic life. For the first time, she could choose her roles without fear of punishment, and that simple act of freedom transformed her career into something deeper, bolder, and far more mature. Producers who had once seen her merely as a gentle figure began to witness an actress capable of exploring emotional depths and expressing complexities that had long been hidden behind contractual limitations. This rebirth became unmistakable in one of the most daring projects of her career, The Snake Pit, released in 1948. In the film, Olivia portrayed a woman confined to a psychiatric institution, forced to navigate a cold, dehumanizing medical system. To prepare, she visited real hospitals, spoke with patients, observed treatments, and allowed her sensitivity to absorb every detail. The shoot was exhausting. The psychological intensity of the role pushed her into sleepless nights and an emotional vulnerability that left lasting marks. But the outcome was historic. The film ignited public conversations about mental health and even inspired reforms in several psychiatric hospitals. Olivia, who had always worked from inner truth, proved that cinema could be a tool for social awareness. 2 years later, the heiress solidified her new stature. Under the direction of William Wyler, Olivia portrayed Catherine Sloper, a seemingly timid young woman who evolves into a pillar of unexpected strength. Her performance was a masterclass in emotional precision. Every glance, every gesture, every silence carried devastating weight. The Oscar she won for the role in 1949 surprised no one. What did surprise people was the artistic maturity audiences discovered in her. She was no longer the actress Hollywood had tried to constrain. She was now a fully realized interpreter, capable of carrying complex dramas with disarming naturalism. Still, her relationship with the studios remained fragile. Olivia had won a monumental battle, but the industry did not easily forgive those who challenged its order. Gradually, she began to feel the need to distance herself from Hollywood's constant noise and seek a more balanced, intimate life. That instinct led her to Paris, a city where she found the peace she had always longed for. In 1953, she settled in the French capital and began a new era marked by elegance, introspection, and personal freedom. In Paris, Olivia became a captivating figure in both cultural and fashion circles. Haute couture houses adored her. Christian Dior considered her a silent muse. Her appearances at European events exuded a natural sophistication far removed from Hollywood's artifices. It was also there that she wrote Every Frenchman Has One in 1962, an ironic and charming book about the peculiarities of living in France, one that revealed a sharp humor and warm intelligence that American audiences rarely had the chance to see. Her romantic life, however, remained enveloped in discretion. The connection with Errol Flynn, never fully public, left an emotional echo that lingered for years. While Flynn spiraled into excess, Olivia kept a cautious distance, perhaps out of self-protection, perhaps out of sorrow. She also nurtured deep, loyal friendships, such as the one she shared with Bette Davis. When Davis passed away, it was Olivia who delivered the eulogy, speaking with a grace that moved even those unaware of their bond. Throughout the decades, Olivia preserved her intellectual independence. Time never dulled her clarity of thought or her artistic sensitivity. In 2017, already past 100 years of age, she sued the producers of the series Feud for using her image without permission and, in her view, misrepresenting her character. Though she lost the case, her gesture made one truth unmistakably clear. Olivia always defended who she was, even when the world believed it knew her better than she knew herself. Living among the Parisian balconies and the memories of an extraordinary life, Olivia became a living testament to a Hollywood that no longer exists, one that had survived wars, transformations, triumphs, scandals, and cultural shifts. She was a woman who, through serenity, proved that true strength does not always shout. Sometimes it simply endures. The relationship between Olivia de Havilland and her younger sister remains one of the most discussed stories in Hollywood, not because of loud scandals, but because of its emotional complexity. For the press, it was perfect narrative material. Two talented sisters, raised under the same roof, shaped by the same mother, rising to stardom in the same era, yet divided by wounds that had begun long before fame arrived. For them, however, it was not a spectacle. It was a quiet burden that shadowed every chapter of their lives. From childhood, comparisons were inescapable. Their mother, deeply invested in cultivating artistic excellence, visibly favored perfection and had no hesitation in judging every achievement. Olivia, the calmer and more obedient daughter, was often seen as the model child, while Joan, more rebellious, sensitive, and fiery, quickly became the one who always had something to prove. This dynamic, repeated day after day, planted a resentment that neither sister knew how to extinguish. To Olivia, Joan was a figure who demanded constant attention. To Joan, Olivia was the unreachable standard imposed at home. When both sisters entered Hollywood, the conflict intensified. Olivia's career flourished with adventure films alongside Errol Flynn, earning her prestige for her disciplined work ethic, while Joan fought to find her footing. Everything shifted when Joan landed the role that would catapult her to stardom, Hitchcock's Suspicion. Her performance earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress in 1942, making her the first of the sisters to win an Oscar. What should have been a moment of celebration became one of the most tense in their history. During the ceremony, Joan pulled her hand away when Olivia reached out to congratulate her. The cameras captured it, and the press immortalized the moment as undeniable proof of a broken sisterhood. The wound cut deep. Olivia, hurt yet silent, continued her work with professionalism. Joan, meanwhile, built a career marked by talent, but also by emotional fragility, one constantly clashing with unresolved childhood memories. When Olivia won her own Oscar in 1946, Joan did not attend the ceremony. Reporters questioned them endlessly, speculating, fueling the flames. In the public imagination, they were no longer brilliant actresses, but tragic figures locked in an eternal feud. The years that followed brought no reconciliation. Both experienced success, heartbreaks, failed marriages, and the slow maturation that comes with age, but their paths remained separate. Sometimes they communicated through third parties. Sometimes they attempted brief reconciliations that ended in long silences. The root of their conflict was never a role, nor an award, nor a headline. It was childhood. It was unequal nurturing. It was the lingering sense, for one sister, of having done too much, and for the other, of forever being measured against an impossible ideal. When Joan Fontaine died in 2013, at the age of 96, many expected Olivia to make a public statement. Instead, she remained silent. No grand declarations, no dramatic tributes, no overdue confessions. Just silence. A silence that, far from coldness, seemed to hold sadness, acceptance, and fatigue. The press speculated again, but Olivia did not respond. She never did. And in a way, that final silence said more than any explanation could. Over time, film historians have revisited the idea of a legendary feud. What they found was far more human. Not a glamorous Hollywood duel, but a family wound that never found the space to heal. Two talented women, shaped by others' expectations, raised by a demanding mother, and pushed into competition by a system that often pitted women against one another. Olivia carried that weight throughout her life, not as a badge of pride, nor as part of her myth, but as an intimate shadow that never quite disappeared. And so, when we think of Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine, the mistake is to remember only the rivalry. The truth is deeper. They were sisters who, despite everything, walked the same world, shone in the same era, and left a legacy that eclipses any conflict. In the stillness at the end of their lives, they remained connected by something Hollywood could never sever: blood, talent, and a destiny shared, even at a distance. As the world began to change and Hollywood left behind the golden elegance of its classical era, Olivia de Havilland remained a living bridge between two centuries, two ways of life, and two distinct understandings of art. Her existence, long, intense, and quietly revolutionary, became a testament to how one woman can transform an entire system without ever raising her voice, simply by holding her dignity as a banner. Over more than 100 years, Olivia witnessed wars, shifting fashions, the rise and fall of cinematic empires, and generations of actors who regarded her as something almost mythical, someone whose legacy rose far above awards or filmographies. From her apartment in Paris, surrounded by letters, memories, and the soft light of the city, Olivia lived a peaceful life that contrasted sharply with the whirlwind of her Hollywood youth. There she wrote, answered admirers with her familiar courtesy, and walked the Parisian streets like a lady who understood the true value of time. It was in that same city that she received, at the age of 101, the title of Dame of the British Empire in 2017, an honor that seemed to close a circle of elegance that had followed her since childhood. When she passed away in 2020 at 104 years old, the world did not simply lose an extraordinary actress, it lost the final direct voice of Hollywood's golden age. Yet her legacy lives on in every performer who fights for complex roles, in every artist who demands contractual freedom, in every woman who refuses to be boxed into someone else's idea of who she should be. Olivia never set out to be a heroine, and yet she became one. Her story, woven between light and silence, remains a reminder that true strength does not always roar. Sometimes it simply endures, steadfast, quiet, and transformative.